Gave up a TV job to start a podcast in your basement. If that doesn't scream midlife crisis, I don't know what does.
It was Championship Sunday here in Indianapolis. What's the mindset then coming in as a defending champion?
I want to win. No, I want to win.
The young lady over my shoulder, Caitlin Clark.
Not the best looking guy. And I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say, Matt Randazzo was really good looking.
What has this last month, 2 months, 3 months been like for you? It's an important fan base for the Fighting Illini, is it not?
It is.
He turned 69 years young last week. You look good, Coach.
Oh, try it. Thank you.
Welcome to Off the Air on a Tuesday here in the Quad Cities. Tuesday, February 11th. Time flies when you're having fun. Everyone in the Quad Cities preparing for Death Storm 2025. We'll talk about the weather situation that is bearing down on the Quad Cities as we speak. It's the fun part of getting to do this and not worrying about having all my time cut tonight doing sports because of a weather storm. But we'll talk all that coming up later on the show. We have another jam-packed show for you today. Coming up in just a matter of moments, there's a guy chuckling to my right. His name is John Marx. We'll talk about the headlines in the world of sports today and get caught up with everything that's going on here in the Quad Cities in just a matter of moments. Also, coming up later in the show, Kyle Huesmann, the real motivating factor, the real driving force behind the Hawkeye Report. Tom Kakert obviously is the pretty face. Not really, but Kyle Huesmann doing a great job as the women's basketball beat writer and also does a great job with Iowa baseball. Iowa baseball starts this weekend. College baseball is now here. I know it's not supposed to be because we're going to get 115 inches of snow coming up on Wednesday. So we'll talk baseball with Kyle as well. Also, really excited to catch up with a really good young man, Carter Bell, former Bettendorf standout, set a bunch of records as a wide receiver at South Dakota. He's now preparing right now for his opportunity to possibly play in the NFL, getting ready for the NFL draft as well. So we'll catch up with Bettendorf's own Carter Bell in just a little bit. So a lot to get to. If you missed yesterday's show, go check out that show. It was one of those shows that kind of got off the track a little bit, which are always the funnest shows. But Pat Anger, always in on Mondays, had plenty to talk about. So go check out Pat. Also, Julian Vandervelde is an excited former Philadelphia Eagle these days. So Julian Vandervelde also on the show. We talked about Cooper DeJean, his Eagles, what makes Philly fans unique, and a whole bunch more. Julian was fantastic, so go check him out as well. Also on yesterday's show, Braden Freeman caught up with Braden Freeman, Owen Freeman's little brother, but more importantly, a senior at Moline, just reached the 1,000-point mark. So we talked to him about that milestone and, of course, Moline basketball as they get ready to hit the home stretch here in the next couple weeks as well. And then last but not least, Football is back at Alleman High School. Varsity football is back, and Jeff Schmalbach was nice enough to come over the weekend and chat with us about the return of varsity football to Alleman High School. Go check out that interview. It's got people talking for some weird reason. We'll talk about that coming up in just a little bit as well. But we start today's show with everything that's going on in the world of sports with my good friend John Marx.
Thanks
for having me, buddy.
I'm okay. I'm still here. I'm bracing like you and you and I have been in this media game for 1,000 years. It was always Snowmageddon or the great. Come on, man. Thank you for letting us know. But they used to make such a bigger deal because we all finally called them on it.
Yeah.
And so we live in the Midwest and we're going to get 5 to 7 inches of snow and we deal with it.
And life's going to move on. No, and I do want to preference all that. I always have fun with it. It's not the weather people.
No, absolutely
not. There's some of my favorite people in this entire world. I love me some James Zahara. Awesome. Andrew Stutzky's fantastic. Yep. Morgan is awesome. Those are just people that are my old station. So this is nothing. It always, and here's the thing nowadays is tomorrow, I'm not belittling it. Like, it's going to make travel difficult and all that kind of stuff. It's be safe and all those kind of things. My thing is, this is like the 15th weather alert impact zone day or whatever that all the stations do nowadays.
But that's some idiot consultant, Matt. You know that is.
Totally
and you and I have dealt with 1,000 of those.
I totally get it. So
get a real job, will you, dude?
It's like when you get those days and you're like, oh, what is it? And you find out there's going to be windy. And then you have these type of impact alert weather forecast days or whatever they're called. I'm trying to get as many weird words into that as possible to not go to one. Yeah. But and now this one's a warranted one, and maybe now it's tough to sift through all of it but anyways, it is going to get nasty out there tomorrow. My kids are already excited for a possible snow day, and we have hills in the backyard, so I'm looking for snow pants and stuff this afternoon, and they can just go outside.
That's your at-home job now.
Yes, exactly, right. So tomorrow, if we're doing a show and you hear kids yelling and screaming, there's a big reason why. So everyone,
you locked them out of the house is what you did. Yeah,
so. we joke and jest and all that stuff, but do be safe out there. Give yourself a little extra time, but
absolutely.
Again, this is what we signed up for.
Well, I know
this is and it's not been that bad. What, 3 inches of snow this year?
In that area, yeah.
So, it's we're due for it. We're gonna get a little bit. And
it's winter. It's still February.
Yeah,
we always get nailed in the last half of February.
Yeah,
so.
no, absolutely. Got a lot to talk to you about. Did you enjoy the Super Bowl? Did you watch the Super Bowl?
I watched the first half and then fell asleep.
Because you're older, because it was boring.
And, no,
A, little B.
Both. Like a 4-year-old when Coop took you and I have had this discussion. When he took the ball to the house, my wife and we jumped up and down like little kids. I made a list, Tavian, Alonzo Wise, Blair Brooks, Rob's son, Cooper DeJean, Alec Wick. Maybe that's the 5, and not even including the Curtis and Roger Craig guys that I've either played or coached against. Westland, the 5. He's one of the better guys that I've ever watched play high school football. After Jackson's Regina team won a state championship, I watched Cooper. They're down. OABCIG's down 100 points in the fourth quarter. And he scores 3 touchdowns within 4 minutes. The video's out there, folks.
I remember it.
I promise you, it's there, and that's as cool a high school moment. Now, and maybe you can help me here. When Iowa first offered, it wasn't I swear he and Max and
was he a
and Wick were walk-on first initial offers, and then maybe I'm wrong, and then they watched him do some other things,
probably,
and then flipped it. And I know they flipped it for sure after the Shrine game.
Yeah,
but
probably.
Maybe,
okay, Tommy would know that right off
Tom
the bat.
would know, but I don't know if it started out as automatic full scholarship. Now I could be wrong, but just think how would. The world's knocking on. He's a great player. Yeah. Plus, watching him play basketball was more fun than watching him play football.
Yeah.
He could dunk over anybody in the state.
It is funny. Some of the stuff on social media is really funny, but he was supposed to be a safety.
Yep.
And obviously, we'll get into the white and black thing and all that kind of stuff. But
wrong paint.
Yeah.
Somebody described.
But it is. I mean, he wasn't supposed to. I mean, he had so many knocks on him. He fell to 40th in the draft, I think, overall. I'm bummed because I thought the Lions were going to draft him late in the first round, and they didn't take him. And here's a former, I joked yesterday, a former Hawkeye scoring a defensive touchdown in the Super Bowl. I was hoping to be Jack Campbell. It wasn't. It was Cooper DeJean. But he's had to prove doubters wrong, from being the small town kid in Iowa to making it the University of Iowa to now winning a Super Bowl and returning a pick 6 on your birthday. is just, you might as well just cash it. I mean, where else does it go from there?
Well, the coolest thing of it all is what he wore to the game. His OA BCIG Letterman's jacket.
Yep.
Again, can you imagine? It took me like 3 months to find out what OTA boat, et cetera, after watching them play at the state championship. So, again, hats off to him. Hats off to everything about the Super Bowl. But I watched the first half and bored, but had other things to get done to prep
you need
for the
to
week.
partake in more sports gambling like me. I was excited.
See,
That final
I don't
drive
gamble.
won me like $150. So
I'm a drunk. I mean, I've been sober 40 years.
Yeah.
So if I have enough vices
You have an addictive
to worry about.
Yeah.
And I had in the old days had a job where I kind of did some collections for an organization. And I took a lot of Rolexes, Maddie.
Johnny,
I took some rings.
Let's call
I
a
took some
spade a
cars.
spade. There's enough people that already don't like you.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest. There's
So,
enough people that
I was kind of a pickup guy for some people and who didn't pay what they were supposed to pay.
That's different though nowadays.
I know.
Nowadays it's just a
but
phone and all that
I don't
stuff,
want to be
but-
that guy.
Did you watch the commercials?
I watched the Dunkin' Donut commercial.
Okay.
Which kind of lost me until I saw the one with Boys to Men guy. Is it Boys to Men? No, they're not Boys to Men.
You got me.
I
Lost
know.
me.
Donnie Wahlberg.
Okay,
Then I paid attention. No.
I never do it during the game. Like, I'm always like, if the game's not on, then I'm going to go get something to eat or whatever. I'm not a commercials person in general.
I laughed at Seal.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of cute.
There was one, the Uber Eats one was really good. Like how football was made for food and all that kind of stuff, which was, I thought, really good. There was a cul-de-sac one for Bud Light where I'm a Shane Gillis. I think he's hilarious. So I thought that was really good, but I don't really get it. I don't even
Nick
know.
Saban doesn't.
Yeah, no, I know, right? Not at all.
Indiana Saban.
Did you, it's silly to ask me about the Super Bowl halftime show just because like, I don't know enough to know, like, and I feel this is officially like my kids knew what was going on. And I officially felt old because I'm like, I don't really know I mean, it might be good. It wasn't my thing, but it might be good. I didn't know.
I watched, I know who Prince was.
Yeah.
God rest his soul. Snoop, Dre, guys, that I loved.
Yeah.
I have no idea, no disrespect.
No, exactly.
I have no idea who Kendrick Lamar is.
Yep.
I saw him at the.
But they're not trying to get people like you and
No,
me
they
to
don't
watch this
care about you
halftime
and I.
show.
Yeah.
Which I get.
Absolutely. And I watched the Grammys. He left with a handful, so he must be gifted.
Yeah.
But no, nothing about it. It didn't excite me. Again, the Superdome is boring to me. It's old hat, and I know it's a dome and it's inside, and no, man, play the game somewhere else.
Yeah. Well, next year I think it's in LA, which is still inside again, but a much nicer place.
Even worse though.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And the Super Bowl is not for you and I anymore. It's not for the average guy.
Yeah.
It's for Kevin Costner, who can afford $30,000 to sit for a seat in that suite, or again, you can boo her all you want, but she's a billionaire. Taylor Swift and all her cronies. So
everyday fans aren't there. Yeah.
No, if you're fortunate enough to have somebody you know that can get you on, didn't Pat tell you didn't they have to give up their tickets to Peyton?
Maybe
There was something going on. Might have been in Indianapolis, and they weren't in it. And when the
Pat
big man
probably
said,
sold him his tickets for a burger or something like that. I mean, let's be honest.
But I'm just like again, the players have to pay. That comes out of their pocket.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. So, I thought, the Randazzo household was bummed this year because this was going to be the year that we were going to do
you guys
it.
joke?
Yeah, we did.
And you're not wearing your Lions.
I'd much rather. I did yesterday.
I know you did.
I had that like plan my entire the Sunday or the Monday after the Super Bowl. I was going to wear that damn shirt, whether they played in it, whether they didn't play in it. One of them. That's the funny part is because during this season, I think my wife said to me once, you wear something Lions every day. I'm like, well, my closet is basically Lions clothes right now, and that's a good thing. So that was the disappointing thing. When you look at it, get away from the Eagles and the Chiefs and all that kind of stuff, but localizing it a little bit more with the Bears, Packers, maybe even my Lions or whatever. When you watch that game, how far? I know Bears fans are excited, and they should be.
It's still ways off.
But
you guys are if healthy and everything falls in line, your favorite team. I still think.
But Bears fans wise, it's. My biggest thing I took out of it, maybe as a Lions fan, was they replaced 2 coordinators and they won a Super Bowl because while coordinators and coaching and all that stuff, and Bears fans know this, so I'm not saying it's not, you need to have both. You need to have coaching, you need to have talent. And while I think the coaching, they took a huge step in the right direction, they still have a draft or two to fix those trenches and all those kind of things as well.
The Bears, absolutely.
Yes.
Now, here's a funny thing, and I want to go on record that I didn't say this. Okay.
This is going to be good.
Yeah, and I'm going to get in trouble.
Yep.
Someone sent me a text saying for the $13 million a year the Bears paid Ben Johnson killed Virginia McCaskey at 103. So that's what 103 or 102 years old. God bless her.
God rest her soul.
Having to pay because how the Bears have been notoriously poor. Mike Ditka was the lowest paid NFL football coach. The greatest coaches they've ever had were still the lowest paid guys in the league.
Yeah.
And now they decided to take that step.
Johnny, you were probably the one on here that I said, hey, who should the Bears get? And you said it was somebody, and they sat in that chair, and they said they should get Ben Johnson. They just won't pay for him. And for the first time, they actually did it. And and so no, and at
$13 million,
there is no reason for me to sit here as a Lions fan and start bashing Ben Johnson.
No,
there's no way I'll ever. I mean, it's a difference between a head coach and an offensive coordinator and all those kind of things. So the proof is still out there. But as far as I mean, I think he's doing a really good job of surrounding himself with some good pieces. Now go and address the trenches, and then no more excuses. Just go and
Did you see the Eagles?
Why
do you think you won a Super Bowl? Look what you have up front.
Yeah.
And look at the disparity on the other side. Well, and I gotta have 1,000 people yell at me yesterday. Okay, they play zone, and then you have max protection, block 7.
Yeah.
No, impossible when you're a team that plays man so well and can play zone that you put 3 people in a pattern. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
So Mahomes was running for his life. Get him outside the pocket. He threw a pick, and our boy cooped it to the house.
And again, remember we were told a while ago, and I understand the premise to it that you needed an elite quarterback to win in the NFL.
Yep.
And I get that makes life a lot easier, but how do you beat an elite quarterback? You have to be dominant up front.
You run the football.
And you run the football. Like everything that the NFL told me the last 5 years about having to win, like the Eagles did the opposite and they won. And I'm hoping, and I'm biased, but the Lions have kind of done the opposite, and they hopefully can win too.
They went. There was a certain gap. They almost a 5 and 6 man front that the Chiefs played, left them vulnerable on the back end. To the deep ball in the middle, and out stuff, the little wheel route and in between zone coverages. So it was open all day.
Yeah,
and that caused them duress. And Saquon Barkley did not, even though he only had 57 yards, did not have to run the football. Still played a huge part because Kansas City designed its defense that day to stop him from running the ball.
I got some high school stuff I want to talk to you about, but before we do that,
you're getting in trouble again.
No, not at all. Next year's Super Bowl final game, and who wins it? Just for fun.
Just for fun?
Yeah.
The Buffalo Bills.
And who they play? Toss me a bone. Toss
me
a bone. I that's what I was going to say. Lions, Bills, and the Lions win it.
Okay.
So, although I do like the Ravens next year too. I think eventually they've got. Remember, everyone keeps telling me that the Lions windows close quickly. Like that's what everybody keeps telling me, and I understand the premise to an extent, but like this Buffalo window's been open for a while, and this Baltimore window's been open for a while, and this Niners window's been open for. Like if you do it correctly and you draft correctly and you develop players and all those kind of things, your windows you just got to figure out the year that you can finally break through and win.
But those windows that you mentioned with the Niners and the Ravens, et cetera, are beginning to shut a little.
Probably, but they've been long.
But the Bills, again, there's a couple pieces. They struggled on the back end defensively.
Yeah.
So they'll, especially with Micah Hyde retiring, they'll need to fix that. But I am a huge Josh Allen fan. My son adores him, adores Buffalo. So it's kind of changed our thinking.
All right. So yesterday, I had a controversial show for a little bit, I guess, because for the second time, this is not making me look good because for the second straight show, I got somebody wearing an Alleman gear sitting in my chair, and I got the Alleman helmet here. Okay. So, but it is what it is. I'm an Alleman grad.
It is what it is.
Alleman made the announcement, and it wasn't like
known forever.
It wasn't a out of the blue, shocking announcement. Everybody that knows anything about anything knew that Alleman football, varsity-wise, was going to be back. Opposing coaches knew. The other
athletic
schools
directors
knew. Athletic directors knew. Alleman just wanted to make an announcement, and they figured, okay, one, and Coach Schmolbach talked about on the show, he put out a tweet about coaches. And so that kind of tipped everybody's hat to hey, if Alleman's asking to get more coaches because of return to varsity football, they're probably having varsity football. Duh. And then also the they put out a video, just kind of fun, Super Bowl
cool.
Sunday, which I thought was a great job. They did a really cool job with it.
Yep.
And I thought it was like awesome. Alleman football's back. Other schools have had to sit out a year or two because of things that have happened, and now they're back. And like, I was surprised that I would say 90% of the social media that I received was negative towards like, they better not ruin it for everybody else.
How are they ruining it for other people? They're going to field. Oh, now you got me. They are going to field a football team. Pay attention.
I didn't purposely plan this. I know.
They're going to play. Stop.
No, I
just
get you.
Enjoy the fact that they tried to get out of the Western Big Six. They have 19 sports. So where are you going to transfer? No one's going to take
and
all
the Western
19
Big
sports.
Six will not let Alleman leave in just football and stay in other places. So
and
they're
that's
in
fine.
there. Yeah.
Okay, they're here. Please salivate, wet your lips, because this is one of those things that they'll have a chance. And I'm taking nothing away from Guy Derrick's.
Yeah.
They match up okay.
Well, and that's a scrimmage. That's a scrimmage.
I know, but they match up.
Yeah.
Okay, then is it Dwight or
The first two teams are oof. Oh.
The other one? Okay, look what Geneseo did.
Yeah,
all those years. Okay, they got a chance to build a foundation there, and then it's going to be. It's going to be struggle in the Western Big Six. Don't care what you say. It's going to be struggle in the Western Big Six for a while. Now, you got your 9th game. You're going to get your victory. It's going to help you to get to 5-4, 6-3. Some of you stop complaining, especially the people. If you hear from Mike Morrissey, if you hear from Coach Little and Quincy, I can't remember the coach's name in Galesburg, you hear from Fritz on social media. Who am I forgetting? Coach Welch, one of my favorite people. If you hear from them, nobody else is their team spokesman. If you hear from them or their athletic director that this is ridiculous, then you got a problem. But other people just shooting their mouths off, come on, man.
Yeah.
Lighten up.
No.
Now you got me all excited.
It's high school sports.
It's high school
sports.
And
I don't remember. It's funny because it is something to do with the helmet and the school that it is. But like when Guy Derrick's and the
great
Riverdale,
job out there.
I mean, they almost made the playoffs this year.
Phenomenal job.
And 2 years ago they didn't have a team. You didn't see them come back the year after they didn't have a team, and the rest of the conference. I almost called it the Olympic conference, but the Three Rivers.
Three Rivers.
You didn't hear the rest of them going like, wait a minute, like, are they going to be able to feel this isn't fair? Now I get it. In 2022, Alleman had to forfeit a game. I think it was one game to Moline, which was unfortunate to do. Okay, I get all that. That's unfortunate. There was somebody, I don't know who it was, or whatever, they said on social media. These guys, these new players shouldn't have to pay for Alleman's sins of the past, but it's still in people's minds or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. That's what I was going to ask you. What sin happened? What sin, like, it was an unfortunate
they hired
situation.
The wrong principal.
Three bad people trying to ruin the school.
Yeah.
And now they're gone. And now they're trying to rebuild a school.
Okay. Yes.
That's what happened. These kids didn't do anything. They're like,
it's not the kids' fault.
Yeah, and I get it. Trust me, like, you don't want to lose any games. And I thought Coach Schmalbach did a really good job sitting here and articulating why it's going to be successful. Because Johnny, you and I both know, and I think Coach Schmalbach will admit it, if he had his way, they would have played this fall.
Yeah,
I mean, he really wanted to do this fall,
and probably not in the Western Big Six.
And it wouldn't have been, but it probably wouldn't have been a good idea to do anything in the Western Big Six. So you waited the 2 years to make sure you do it right. I'm always that big guy of like, hey, you only get one chance to do a do-over. Like if you can't restock and then pull the plug again and then say, okay, we're going to re-go, then you just don't do it that way. Like you have to be able to do it right this time. And like I said, I'm not sitting here as an Alleman alum. I'm not sitting here as an Alleman alum, period. That's the funny thing is, like, after you cover sports in this area for 25 years, I've rooted like you wouldn't believe for Rock Island. When Chase and Randall and then were playing and making that stretch down, I was the biggest Rock Island fan ever in the world. When Moline won state championship a few years ago, I was doing that. When Nick Welch was going into UT, and I sit there and I'm like, man, just get over the hump. I'll text him after every game, like,
can't wait.
This and that, you're so close, or hey, great win. Like, I'm pulling for, and those are just in different sports. Like, I guarantee you, I've rooted for every Western Big Six school in my life, and I'm an Alleman grad. And I would like now.
I coached them.
Yes, the 12-year-old Matt would have been like, I don't like Rocky because I don't go to Rocky. That was like now that was like
I know what you
30
mean.
some years ago. I don't do that anymore. So
you
I'm
got
not
to know those
saying
people.
I'm not saying any of this as like an Alleman guy or an Alleman homer or anything like that. I'm just, I mean, if it would have been Riverdale and Riverdale came back and like we had reactions on social media about like from their conference teams.
Let it play out.
It just they're doing it. And also I would say this to anybody who like was frustrated or thinks the way that like some of the people we're talking about are doing. And I don't care. You can have your own opinion. That's fine,
Please.
but I'm not mad at it. But like, just watch the whole interview. Like I take a snippet and put it onto social media and click the link. And I don't think enough people click the link because the questions that I was being asked on social media, were being answered. I can't answer them. I'm not the head coach of the Alleman football program, and God, nobody wants that. But I asked the questions and he answered them. He talked about 40 kids in the program right now. They think they'll have 60 next year. In no way, shape, or form do you and we're both Alleman guys. They ain't gonna win the Western Big Six next year.
No.
It's good.
No,
like
not.
it's gonna be some lean. This is the next step in a program getting back on track. And I know some people don't like this, but Alleman being in the Western Big Six is the best for the Western Big Six. If you have all the founding members and they're all, I don't know if it's the best for Alleman. That's a whole different debate.
Well,
but like,
Are
I
these
think
people jealous of what happened years ago when the little old school was we didn't
I don't-
recruit?
some people
did not recruit when you got accused of it.
Yeah,
and
yes.
then what?
It's,
I don't
it's
know.
the Catholic versus it's the private. Some it probably is. I don't. Some people I knew, some people I didn't know. I'm not. I try to stay out of Twitter like arguments and all that kind of stuff. There's no reason to do all that. I like some of the people that commented and didn't comment. I mean,
I'm
it
just
wasn't.
glad the building's open and young people are playing athletics. And I preface all this.
And of course, you had to wear your Alleman football shirt today.
Because I wanted to be warm. It is supposed to snow tomorrow.
Yes, it is.
Again, I coach baseball at Alleman. Let's be honest.
And you coached football for a long time.
And forever.
Yeah.
And I didn't coach football. And that was, I got to spend the last coaching with my son in that group. The COVID, we fought that. I didn't like the administration. I know at that time. And I happen to be a huge fan. The world should be, for those of us that know, Jane Barrett, Mike Luton's. Yeah, it's
Jerry Burkhead's doing a pretty good job.
and wait a minute, I was going to get to Coach Burke.
I said it first, Jerry.
Yeah.
I said it first.
Okay, but the reason the doors are open, and if you're Matt and I, when we went to high school, if the reason the doors are open are Luton's, Jane Barrett first, and Jerry Burkhead, and people in the staff and in the building, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
So why can't we just all enjoy the fact? Now, if you don't want him in a Western Big Six, vote him out, but let him participate in other things.
Yeah. And I get like when somebody, whoever it was, said like the sins of the past, like it's the equation, the equivalent of when people say like, oh, I heard your dad lost his battle with cancer. And like that, and I'm not using my dad as an example because that happened, but like, or anybody lost their battle with
Mine
cancer
too.
because nobody loses a like those cancer people aren't losers. Does that make sense? It's just I understand the premise. Yeah, I understand the premise of like the sins of the past, but like it just doesn't equate very well because like that's not these kids now and those kids back then, like the last 2 years or 3 years ago when they didn't do anything wrong. There were a bunch of kids at that school 3 years ago, their last varsity year, that were playing for football for probably the first time in their lives, just so that their school could have a team.
Yep.
So like, again, and this is not a Homer thing. This is not, I was just surprised by it. And it's a conversation.
Absolutely.
And I did reach out and chatted with a good friend of ours, Greg Armstrong, who hosts a really good podcast, View from the West. Of course, they don't do as much during February and all this when there's not a lot of high school football going on, but we may talk about it more later in the week as well, because again, like I was just surprised that it was a controversial a subject.
And they all know how we feel about. I will forever be in debt to Coach Dene, who took over Alleman when nobody wanted to take over Alleman and fell on the sword for us. And I love the fact they got to celebrate whatever that one game they won in 2 years. So I will forever be in debt. I am a huge Coach Welch fan at United Township. I think the world is his oyster, and he will go and do great things. And you and I both. We have a wonderful back and forth with Coach Morrissey all the time, who I've already texted today. I'm his biggest fan, and I had a personal issue, and he helped me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I sat, and it took time. We sat down, had a conversation, and eased my. So this isn't personal. You got young kids that are going to go play football. They win, they win. They lose. But they're still. You wanted them back, so now they're back.
Yeah, and then here's the thing: you can keep going too.
I know.
And I don't know the new coach.
I don't know
Coach
Coach Little
very well.
And,
Coach Little,
phenomenal. Coach Little.
I've gotten to spend the last two Western Big Six coaches banquets with Coach Little because he actually came up because they were good.
Yeah.
And that's just a little joke, but they were good. So he came up, really good dude, really good human being.
Absolutely.
And John Schlemmer might be the best of all of them.
Please forgive
that's
me
right,
for
Coach
Schlemmer. And Sterling.
Yeah, so none of it is to do with it. It's a really good conference.
Class act.
And that's the thing you got to be careful with when you jump on social media and you say like teams are worried about or coaches are worried about. Because unless you know that they're worried about, you're speaking for all these guys that we just talked about. And I don't think that it may be the case. I don't know. Maybe you're speaking for them and everything like that. But unless they all speak and maybe we can, this is why you have a show like this. Maybe a Coach Welch or Coach Morrissey or any of those guys we can chat with and all those kind of things too. But again, I was just kind of surprised by the overall negativity that I thought it'd be a lot of positive stuff, and I was surprised. I thought it was a no-brainer. I thought it was one of those things where you give them at least 24 hours to say, "Oh, good for you guys, you're back," and then we're gonna kick your butt. We'll probably kick your butt this fall.
Absolutely,
but congratulations, you're back.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna go kick your butt.
Yep.
And
that's
I mentioned banquets, so it's a good little segue, and I wasn't gonna talk a lot about it, but I should mention it.
I can't wait.
And I should know. Do you know the dates and stuff? I can kind of start looking as we go. Because I should know. Who would have posted it? Kevin Corrigan?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look as we go. But
or Thomas.
The Western Big Six
baseball
is having a coaches banquet for baseball.
Phenomenal.
And it's an awesome idea. So there's the
Friends of Douglas Park, we should mention.
Yes.
Great group.
So and I'm going to have Kevin Corrigan on closer to time, but I think it's March 12th or March.
Yes, it's a Wednesday evening.
19th or the 12th, one of the two.
It's the 12th.
12th, March 12th.
Look it up.
At 5:30. At the Stern Center. The other, AKA Bill Healy's house. That's what I like to call everything. At one of his houses. The guy,
you wanted to say mansion.
The guy's got the house. The guy's got the Quad Cities but in the palm of his hand.
He also works 148 hours a week.
No, he does. He's one of my favorite people. But so yeah, they're having a banquet for the Western Big Six. Just so you know, and most people know, they have a football banquet for the coaches. They have a boys basketball banquet. They have a girls basketball banquet. The girls basketball banquet was added a few years ago. So now they're going to have a Western Big Six baseball banquet. 12th. I think it's a fantastic idea. On the 12th at the Stern Center, 5:30. Coaches will be there to talk.
Yep.
You'll get some good
same
food
as every other. Yep.
and all that kind of stuff.
Great food.
I think Jake Kidwell is emceeing it, which is an outstanding. And you and I both know Jake Kidwell is as good as they get. So really good idea. I'm going to have Kevin Corrigan on closer to the event just to kind of talk about it. But again, it goes back to, now that we're talking about high school sports a little bit, supporting high school sports in the area. And who would I have on? You're Wild Man last week for Wild Man Wednesday, which of course is tomorrow. So get ready for Wild Man tomorrow. And by the way, I'm going to have you and Wild Man on at the same time one time. I've almost got it figured out. I've almost got it figured out where I have my split shot. I can have up to 4 people. But here's the thing.
There's only room for those two Eagles.
Here's the caveat is that we tape those at Tuesday night only whenever Burball's ready to go.
I know.
So you might have to stay up a little later in order to do it with us.
Dan.
And also I want to have him and Glenn Cook on at the same time.
Oh my.
Like a reunion of the K-Jock
You
days.
better do it at noon because Gunn will be asleep by 2.
So anyways, I'm getting off on all these different subjects.
I know.
But anyways, I asked him about the coaches banquet and covering them and all those stuff back in the day. They're a lot of fun. Unfortunately, some of the ones that are already staples, they're still amazing times, but the participation is waning, and it's frustrating. It's a factor to social media, and you get all your information more. Back in the day, hey, how's Moline going to be in basketball? Let's go down, check out the banquet. We'll find out how they're going to be. Now it's there's more knowledge, there's more information everywhere, but it's a great time to support high school athletics. A bunch of good dudes in that conference too. When it comes to Thomas Smith and Scudder and
Jake Scudder's one of my favorite people.
Yeah, and Schimmel and I'm forgetting.
Galesburg, I know.
I'm not going to name them all because I'm going to get in trouble. Yeah,
great dude. Great dude.
And so there's a ton of
Sterling, good
reasons to get out there and to support Western Big Six baseball. So do that. We'll have more information about that later.
A new coach in Geneseo.
Absolutely.
Coach Nichols is. I forgot his name. He's one of the assistants. Great guy. Coach Nichols.
He's just saying he's a great guy because he's just trying to butter
No, they
me
do
up.
things right in
He's
your
just
program.
he's just
yeah,
buttering
well,
you
they'll
up.
beat after
Okay.
I got house.
Where
last
are
year
you
with them.
tonight? So John Marx is obviously a longtime columnist. He used to be a sports writer. You do a lot of MC22
Yep.
play-by-play and shows too. So check out MC22 if you have MediaCom because
Thank you.
there's a lot of really good informative shows and interviews and all that kind of stuff that you do. Keeping Up with the Quad Cities, I actually watch. And I
Perfect.
don't even have MediaCom, which I probably shouldn't be saying, but
Look at you
you
bootleg
can get it
stuff.
on. You can get it on the website and stuff. So, anyways, with my mom has MediaCom though as well. Anyways, where you at tonight?
North at Assumption, both games,
Okay,
boy and girl.
those are good games. Doubleheader. Are you calling both games?
Yes,
Oh wow.
with Pete and I are calling both games.
Okay, so North and Assumption.
Yep.
That things have tightened
At
up for the
Assumption.
boys' side of things.
Yes, and it's nice to see Assumption get a little healthier. And I don't know if since their Simon is 100%, but they got Isaiah Rose back, and they got Braylon Thompson is a tremendous player, and Davenport North. No one
Yeah,
no one
Marquez
ever picked
on.
those guys. Teneric Brady, wow.
It's cool to see and we know
Then
the-
Divine and Journey.
the old school like coaches that we knew, like some of these young coaches, Johnny, they just get it. And Marquez is one of those guys too, where
Yep.
like I love to watch what younger kids do with programs because it is different. Like the old school coaches that we used to deal with and put up with, and the younger coaches now. There's a change. It's not a huge change, but you've had to tweak a little bit how you're a coach these days. And you know some of them in your program at Alleman with Thomas Smith, who's a young,
Phenomenal.
energetic guy and does things the right way. It's fun looking and watching these
My
newer
guy.
coaches coming up. We mentioned the football coaches, but they're younger dudes with energy, but they get the big picture of things too.
Do you remember when you and I first threw Mike, and I'm going to use Mike Morrissey as my go-to into that category. That young, energetic guy came into Moline and kind of,
And he's the hottest coach in the Quad Cities.
oh my
too,
goodness.
is what I've been
I
told.
know. And Nick
Love
Welch,
you,
the same
Mike.
thing, football-wise.
Yeah.
Kind of blew things up because they are forever energetic. Yes, it's that way. I love it with, and Joe Ewan is the older guy, but he's still young.
Yeah,
And
is he the older guy? Because I think he's my age.
okay.
At least you threw air quotes up. To
I know,
make
but
you
he,
feel
but
a
he
little
can
better.
play.
Yeah.
I mean, he could play, and he came back and coached and North and now at Assumption and has a state championship. You and I still think Ryan Weber's 24.
Yeah.
Well, he's taken a Bettendorf program and taking it to great heights now.
Well, the reason we still think Ryan Weber's 24 is because he still looks like he's 24 years old.
Absolutely.
Like, God
So-
bless him.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of Seamus coming back at North Scott. I'm all for it. I think I'm a huge fan. But Jake Tim, young guy, Assumption girls, and
VC's younger.
I
At,
know
Bettendorf.
I know.
Yeah.
And so they're out there, and be thankful that we have them and that they're committed to it. And I'm sorry that I had to go to Nick Welch and Mike Morrissey, but those are two of the guys that they took over programs, big programs at a young age, and have. Welch is knocking on that door of greatness. They're going to win 7 football games next year, maybe 8. And Morrissey is. I don't know if they're ever going to get over that to the quarterfinals or semifinals hump at Moline because of who they have to play.
Yeah.
After they have to take that step up, but they're going to win every year.
The only problem that I have with Welch and Schlemmer as well is that
Schlemmer.
they keep dodging me and Jason Foy. We tried to play him in golf. We want to go and play indoor golf. They keep dodging us. They're scared. Like it's sad.
It is sad.
that they're scared of a bunch of old guys,
I
but
know.
like it's what it is.
The
fellas.
Western Big Six as a whole, and baseball and in the MAC is fortunate because not everybody's really too old.
Yeah.
And Kevin Tippett wasn't old, and
No,
he got
not at all.
and he got out. Rusty's not old.
Yeah.
Aaron Wiley, who I love when he gives you crap, is not old. But these guys are phenomenal at what they do. So let's embrace them and keep them around and let them have some fun with it.
All right, we're going to wrap up our high school chat with something I'm going to talk with Burball about tonight for tomorrow's show, but and it's probably changed through the years, so his perspective may be different from what it is today. But when you look at this area, what are the best rivalries in this area? And you can't just start rambling them all off, because that's the easiest thing to do, and that's what I started doing when somebody I think Don Umlin asked me this question the other day. I'm like, it's a good one for the show. So like, if you had to rank them in our and you can get out there a little ways. I mean, I say viewing area, but I guess with YouTube, our viewing area is really wherever I want. But you know what I mean when it comes to the Quad City viewing area. What are the best rivalries high school wise?
Sherrard, Rockridge, Orion, anything.
Okay.
And I'm going to get to the Western Big Six, but having done a little television, having done coaching, and having done my old job as a columnist, and then the early days. And they're not far from each other.
Yeah.
They just flat out don't like each other.
Yes.
And now there's not a spouting off.
Yeah.
They let things talk on Tuesday, Thursdays, Saturdays, but in Alito as well.
I worked at the Milan Hy-Vee growing up, and I worked with a lot of Rockridge and Sherrard kids, and they just didn't like each other. There was a huge rivalry that people don't realize.
Almond Rock Island is because they're in the same city.
Is Rock Island Alderman or?
Well, let me get to mowing. I think mowing Rock Island basketball. Almond Rock Island football used to be a big deal. I think mowing Rock Island football was a big deal. Now it's mowing UT football because what I just mentioned, those two young, energetic guys.
But Welch won't even say the name of the school.
I know. Well, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's like the school to the north.
Yep.
Yeah. So the school down the street. That's the way it should be. And that will always continue. That will always grow.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine Sean Taylor and Duncan Reed, God rest his soul, coaching against each other?
Oh, wow.
Just a stomp of the feet. And my goodness. And it was good with DeVilder and all those guys when Duncan, but come on.
Yeah.
My goodness. So take North Scott is anybody because everybody.
But what is, like, I'm trying to think, because the MAC is so different now because they don't play football in the MAC.
I know, they play
so
district.
Is it Bettendorf PV because they play football and then they play all the other sports? It has to be.
It has to be.
The Hy-Vee and the 2 miles apart, all that
absolutely.
kind of stuff.
And then and I live in that.
Mm-hmm.
I live in the PV school district. The other part of it is North Scott against anybody right now.
Yeah.
Because they're good.
Yeah.
In football. And North Scott is going to get really, really good in boys basketball again. And then it's going to be them against the world. It used to be Central West.
Yeah.
I mean,
like I just joked with Greg Armstrong
when
when
I was
brought this
growing
up. He said, like, and I jokingly said, like, if Brian Stocking was sitting here, he would say North and West and Central and North and all those. The Davenport thing is a thing. I mean, it is in their own communities. That's the thing is I always look at it like this when it comes to the best ones is which ones transcend like just their community. Like, so while Rock Ridge and Sherrard is probably big, I mean, heck, I'm right in the middle of the two schools. I'm probably equidistance between two of them.
And Orion.
94 and Orion.
And don't forget.
But like, does the rest of the Quad Cities or the area know about that? Now, mind
absolutely.
you, the reason why, how about this one? DeWitt, Central DeWitt, Macokota.
Especially now that.
How about Wilton Durant?
No.
Yeah, those are two quite good ones over there.
Can I take that one step further? And I know Regina West Branch.
Okay. Yeah.
West Branch has always had that inferiority. I know. Mm-hmm. I have to go by there and polish Marv Cook's statue. And Coach Pedersen, God rest his soul, but Butch Peterson. But that was always that. Because Regina kept winning state championships. It's a huge rivalry.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Pick one.
Okay. So
I'm
going to make you pick one.
You're going to make me pick one?
Yeah. If you had to say this is, because you've done games on all these, I mean, with MediaCom, you've probably done all of them
right now,
in the last.
And today.
Yeah. If you had to pick, and not just in the sport, but schools-wise, is it Rocky Moline?
No, it's Bettendorf PV.
You think? Yeah.
And everything.
Yeah.
And everything. Tell me Ryan Weber does not want to, and you know the backstory. Tell me he doesn't want to beat Coach Getz in her program, which is the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me.
I get you.
Okay.
No, I totally, I
get. And then as much as Aaron and Rusty respect each other,
that's a big deal.
Oh, it is a huge deal. And you've heard some things.
No, I agree with you.
You've been on the sideline and heard some things yelled across the side of the field during the ball game, and then there's a hug afterwards.
Yeah.
But not just those two. There's every other coach knows everybody else.
Has Rocky and Moline played a lot of postseason sports?
Basketball.
Yeah.
In the old days.
Yeah. It's just I feel
Used to be
like
regional.
when it comes to Bettendorf PV, they meet more in bigger games because of
Absolutely.
of the ability to play in the postseason, all those kind of things.
It was week 1 last year in football, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. If you were, where were you television-wise that night?
I think I was there.
Okay. Did you try to mic up one or two to say?
Yeah, no,
okay,
absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
okay. You know how it works.
Nope, I totally get it. Yep.
Where are we? Where is the biggest
Hey,
game?
I've stacked a lot of rundowns in my
I know.
day, and like
but I'm just
usually
saying.
Bettendorf PV will trump.
It's
trump anything.
easiest, yeah. And Coach Hillman, Coach Vesey's doing a great job. Coach Hillman has plenty of trips to the state tournament, so they don't like each other.
Yeah,
either.
yeah.
It's
No.
you can pick up a rock, and if you got arms good enough, you can throw it from one of those two schools to hit the other.
Yeah. It's a fascinating. And here's the thing that I'll find funny is like I wonder what Dan's going to say tonight when we chat for tomorrow, because I
He'll go
think
back
the
to the
Bettendorf
70s.
PV I think the Bettendorf PV rivalry has really heated up recently with the success. And when I say recently, I don't mean
it was so dominant all those
Remember
years,
Danny
yeah.
left, like I have
I know.
05 in my head. I don't think it's what it was, but 20 years ago, but he was still around for MC22 for a little before he left the area. But he's going to go back to, if you go back to 05, I'm assuming Bettendorf was again, a rivalry has to be competitive. And like what you said with Bettendorf PV, they're competitive. Like those sports are,
Yes, now.
they're all good. I mean, some of the volleyball, it was Bettendorf was the most dominant volleyball program in the state.
Excuse
and
me,
then
North
now
Scott
it's just,
volleyball, North. Yeah,
it's flipped to the other ones.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm just curious if like Dan will say Bettendorf Assumption, because that might have been more of a thing back when he was here more, especially football
Moline
wise.
over 100 years.
Yeah.
So take it.
Yeah, I mean, and we will have Rock Island Moline. People say, "Are you kidding me?" Like and I totally get it. I think it's a fantastic rivalry as well. But also, I think what pulls from that is like the other rivalries pull away from the Rocky Moline rivalry. The fact that Moline also can't stand UT makes
Right.
that the fact that Rocky and Moline,
they all hate
Rocky
Allman.
and Alleman. Yeah, I think like those four have a great rivalry amongst everybody. Besides PV Bettendorf, who do you toss in? North Scott. Well, they don't play in football.
No.
Which I get, like they play in everything else. So I know
North
it's
Scott
important,
Assumption
but
football is kind of a big
yeah,
deal.
absolutely,
but-
absolutely. But
but
you know,
because they're district.
that North Scott doesn't play Bettendorf, and they don't play PV because Coach Tippett said that Rusty's scared of him.
Wow.
Yeah. And Rusty texted me right away and said that's not true. But I don't think he said
Oh,
it. In
nice
those,
guy.
and Tippett didn't
Don't
say
get me in trouble with
Tippett
either one of
didn't
them.
say it in those words.
I know.
But he implied, which in a fun way, because they're really good friends as well. So,
I know.
well, I've appreciated this.
Thanks for
This has
letting me
been a
hang
lot
out.
of fun. I don't know if this is gonna help my cause, or and that's the thing is, I had Johnny coming on a long time ago. It wasn't like I was like Johnny, like there's yes, we see the optics of this. We see Alleman guy,
I'm just trying to stay warm
talking
today.
Alleman and all that kind of stuff. So we understand all that, and it's something we'll talk more about. But I was just surprised, and that's not the reason I had you out, but I was just surprised that there was any negativity at all.
Me too.
I think like I said, if you're gonna have a preview podcast maybe in the summer and you want to bring up the fact that like, you know, hopefully Alleman stays healthy because it was a bad and all those kind of things, I get it. But if Alleman says that they can play football the entire year, I think you have to hold them at their word that they can play the entire year and go
And then
from
take
there.
care of business on Friday night.
The administration now is much stronger and a better foundation than what happened with what happened in the past.
The Jane, Coach Mr. Luton's, Jerry, etc. School board.
Athletic director Marlene Weatherall does a great job.
Yes, she does. I hope, Nudie, I hope you're watching.
I'll send that to her.
I know. Well, come on. Who runs that department?
And Mark does a good job as well.
Love you, Marlene. But Mark, yes.
Mark's snapping right now. He doesn't ever watch
I
the
know.
show because he's napping. Actually, he does say he watches the show a lot, so I'm waiting for my phone to
Well,
pop
feel
up.
free to do some work. Get the bus schedules
Hey,
right.
Sometimes people say watching this show is work. It can be a challenge. It can be some work as well. He's Johnny Marks. He will be on the call of Assumption and North's doubleheader tonight.
Yep.
Is it live or taped to live?
It's live, and then a big fan. I can't wait to watch. I want
Where
to
are
see
you Friday?
Huh?
Where are you Friday?
Rock Ridge, Oregon.
I'm with you. Not with you on air, but I'm doing stats.
Well, we always need an intern.
So I can't wait. Hey, I'll take whatever. I'm unemployed. Hey, Johnny, I'm unemployed. I'm just trying to make a buck, man. I'm not. Hey, I'm not.
Mrs. Randazzo, here,
And-
I'll pay attention. Mrs. Randazzo's shoulders are sore. They've been sore for a lot of years. She's been carrying, Mrs. Marx's shoulders are really, really sore, having carried my rear end for 30 years.
I don't know what I should take of this, but I called. She was out of town last week, and
You know she
Sarah texted and she's like, hey, we need a stats guy on Friday, February 14th. So the first thing that pops in my mind is Valentine's Day. And then also, like, I went and looked at Alleman's schedule. I think Alleman plays Rocky. And I was like, my son dresses sophomore play sometimes. And I was like, I'm good with not missing that one. And so I thought, okay, let me check with my wife. And her response was, yes, I think you should do it. It wasn't like if you so
Happy Valentine's Day.
It's Valentine's Day. Yeah, it's like, hey, go make some money, like to go be productive and all that kind of stuff too. So Rock, and that's out at Rock Ridge, isn't it?
Out at Rock Ridge.
That should be a good game.
Yep.
All right.
Orion is a little boogered up, banged up right now.
Injury-wise?
Yeah, but they have couple really good players, and then Landon Bull and company. You know what you're getting.
Caleb Kunico got over 1,000 points. I got to give him some love, and he was close to becoming, real close. I think he was 5 going into that game, becoming the school's all-time leading 3-point
in that house, though.
Well, and that's the thing is, because I said to his dad Pete, I said, probably I'm guessing he's chasing down Brian Heath's record,
probably,
or Tyson, but Tyson won the shooter.
Joe, I think Joe or Brian got Tyson's record, didn't he?
But it's a Whiteman that has the record, which makes sense.
I love it.
One of them, I don't know. One of those kids that Toby created. Bless
Who got
his heart.
Okay,
he got
it. I'm sure they told you.
Yeah,
he got a technical because he and Andy were sitting there. They always watch the sophomore game.
Yeah,
and they should. And that's a great thing for varsity coaches. Coach Whiteman got a technical
when
and during that game, just sitting there watching. And I won't tell you who the 2 officials were because then I'll get bigger trouble than I'm already in. But then he had to go up and sit during the varsity game and watch it from the top.
I had heard about that. I'm just wondering if it's the same thing or he didn't do it twice. That's why I said when. Okay, yeah. I had to give him a hard time because I saw him at Alleman a few days later and
he was ejected.
Maybe a week later. Yeah, he wasn't even given a tech. He was given a technical and an ejection. Like he wasn't given 2. He was just given 1 and told to leave.
And Dr. Morrow was there. So
all some of my favorite people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're all good.
Not the 2 officials.
I'm worried about UT athletics though, because with Bam leaving, like the new guy I heard is a disaster. Like
I don't know if we can tell the world, but all I know is they got themselves aces right there. They didn't come. First of all, love the man. He's family to me. And second of all, don't start whining to him.
Yeah,
it will. Wrong place, wrong time.
If you have any complaints on this segment, John Marx's email will be put up at the bottom of the screen, so you guys can call and yell at him. Johnny,
get on board.
As always, appreciate you,
brother.
All right. We got a lot more to get to on today's show. Coming up after this, we're going to take a look at Iowa women's basketball and Iowa baseball right around the corner as well. Of course, the Iowa women getting a big victory last night against Nebraska. So they've gone from the sky is falling to now winning 5 straight games with a trip home to take on Rutgers coming up on Thursday night. So Kyle Huesmann from the Hawkeye Report will join us right after this break. And then after that, we'll be talking to Carter Bell in hour number 2, former Bettendorf standout, doing big things, setting records at South Dakota, and now getting ready to hopefully make a run at the NFL. So a lot more to get to. You're watching a Tuesday edition of Off the Air. We'll be right back right after this.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Tuesday here in the Quad Cities. Of course, everyone waiting for the big snowstorm, which means people can get ready to hibernate a little bit and watch a bunch of basketball and a little baseball eventually as well. We're joined now by the Hawkeye Report's Kyle Huesmann, and I'm thinking everybody's looking at me going like, Hawkeye Report? I thought that ugly Tom Caker usually pops up when that happens. Tom is just like a small, tiny, eeny-beeny fraction of what the Hawkeye Report is. Kyle doing a great job on the Iowa women's beat, the baseball beat, and several other things. So, Kyle, first and foremost, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is my first time on, so I'm excited.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun, a lot to talk about. But before we get to that, I mentioned you've been covering the Hawkeyes for a while as a student, and now with the Hawkeye Report, a Bettendorf grad. So kind of talk about like how you got into all this, and you're living the dream right now, man. You're covering as many sports as possible all at the same time, which is great.
Yeah, so I'm from just down the road in Bettendorf, and grew up playing a bunch of different sports, played baseball throughout my high school career, and then went to Iowa and studied sports and recreation management. And, this was kind of what I wanted to get into. And thankfully for Tom, he kind of gave me a chance, and without any experience, I kind of reached out to him and asked for an opportunity to gain some experience, and that just kind of turned into what it is now. So yeah, very thankful for him to give me the opportunity to start covering baseball. This is my 5th year covering baseball, so it's been a while since he gave me that opportunity. But yeah, it's just kind of morphed into this full-time job now, and which is great. And women's basketball has obviously been a fun ride, but baseball is where it all started. And we'll end up getting to talk about it, and it'll be the 5th season of covering Rick Hellers and the Hawkeyes this year.
That is outstanding. We love Quad City people, so this is fantastic. And yeah, you mentioned baseball season. I know it's weird with my intro being an 8-inch snowstorm coming our way tomorrow. It's weird to think about baseball, but we'll warm people up with a little baseball talk in a little bit. But I want to start with you with the women's basketball beat, and it was another successful night for the Iowa women in Nebraska, at Nebraska yesterday. They've now won 5 straight. Before we get to the big picture of things, last night's game, I think you nailed it. We were texting last night, and it was a comfortable victory, but it was a bigger victory than what the score even showed. The Iowa women played really good last night.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they played really well. Lucy Olson was obviously the standout performer with a season best 32 points. She's really looked, as good as she has. She looked like the player that was at Villanova last year over these last 5 games. Obviously, her performance against USC was fantastic as well. But Taylor McCabe hit 5 threes. Sita Fulter hit 3 threes. She shot it really well as of late. This was a game that Iowa really never felt like they were had any chance of losing. They had a pretty comfortable margin throughout the game. The first half was a little bit closer, but Nebraska really stuck in it with at the free throw line. They made 20 free throws to Iowa's. I think they had 5 or 6 made free throws. So that really kept Nebraska in it for a while, but Iowa just kind of kept the 3-point shooting going. Made a season best 12 threes, which is gonna win you a lot of games when you can make double-digit threes. But I thought they played defense pretty well for the most part. I thought Kylie Feuerbach did a really good job on Britt Prince when she was in the game. Britt had 22 points in the game in Iowa City when Nebraska won. They held her to 5 last night. They won the rebounding battle again, and they only turned it over 10 times. So there was a lot of really good things that came out of the win last night, and it started with Lucy Olson putting up 18 in the first half to really lead the way when some of those players were in foul trouble. But I thought those 3, Lucy and Taylor McCabe, obviously back in her home state, I think had like 50 people, friends and family in attendance last night, and then Sita Fulter's really picked it up as of late as well. Those 3 were really the standout performers last night.
Yeah, no, they played well as a trio. Let's talk a little more about Lucy, because she came to Iowa with such fanfare. And I think besides the on-the-court stuff, she had to, be that person that was quote unquote replacing Caitlin Clark, which was impossible to do. She's hit her stride. She hit her groove. Obviously, the USC game had a lot to do with that. But can you see a different Lucy Olson now than you did just like 2-3 weeks ago? I remember Rob Brooks was on here, and it was probably after the trip out west maybe, and he's like, when your best player's scoring 4 points, you're not going to win too many games. It's flipped pretty quickly for her, and I think USC had a lot to do with it. Where has her game gone just in these last 2-3 weeks?
Yeah, I think the first one was that Washington game. The second game in that West Coast swing, she was, I think, 8 of 8 from the floor in that game, made 4 threes. And then obviously the USC game kind of propelled that to another level with, putting up 23 points in the second half and really helping carry Iowa to the win there. But yeah, this 5-game winning streak, she's looked like I wouldn't even say a completely different player. I would just say she looks like the player that played at Villanova last year. And I think part of it is because, she came in, like you said, following, whether she wanted to say it or not, or the coach wanted to say it or not, she's following in the footsteps of Caitlin as that new point guard. And it's hard for a player that averaged 25 points a game to come into a new team and come in and say right away, like, I'm going to be the player that's going to score 25 a game again. If you know Lucy Olson, if you've seen press conference, things like that, she's not the player that's just going to come in and say, this is my team, I'm going to score 25 a game and do that. So I think early in the season she was just kind of trying to find what does her role need to be. Does she need to be a player that scores 20 points a game? Does she need to be a player that scores 15 a game and has more assists and things like that? And I do think that the transition to playing Big Ten play was an adjustment for her. The Big East obviously has Connecticut, they have Marquette, Creighton, but it's just not the same level as going in and playing a Big Ten team every night. So I think there was a bit of an adjustment for her there. But I think over this 5-game stretch, I think she's really kind of learned that there are going to be games where the opportunity is there for her to score 25 or score 30 like she did last night, and it's okay to do that. It's just because you do have a few more weapons around you at Iowa, maybe compared to Villanova, that doesn't mean you have to spread it every night and try to get those other players involved. If it's there for you to go score 30, you should do that. And that's what she did last night. And she ended up finishing with 7 assists as well. So it wasn't her just putting up 30. She was able to spread the ball around as well. But I do think, she's looked more comfortable over the last 5 games, just taking the majority of the shots, rather than maybe earlier in the season. Maybe she was just a little bit, maybe not tentative, but just trying to find her role of, do I need to be that player that scores 20 a game, or what do they want me to do? But I really think she's gotten more comfortable during this last stretch, and last night really did a good job of attacking the basket. The mid-range is where she likes to live, but when you can drive to the basket and you can be a threat from 3-point range, that makes it really hard to defend. And last night may have been the most complete game she's played all season in terms of scoring at all 3 levels. And that type of player, if she can be that player down the stretch, they can still win a lot of games and be a threat to win a couple of games at the NCAA tournament.
Kyle Huesmann from the Hawkeye Report joining us on Off the Air. You mentioned Kylie Feuerbach, and you look at the box score and nothing's going to pop out at you and just be like, wow. But I think it's universally known now that she's just a catalyst on defense. What did you see from her? Not just last night, but you noticed it against USC. You noticed it night in and night out. She's just different on that defensive end of the floor.
Yeah, I think, what she did against USC really stood out to a lot of people because she was guarding Juju Watkins for the majority of that game. So obviously that's going to get more eyes and more attention. And I thought she did a fantastic job. I know Juju finished with whatever it was, 25, 27 points. But some of those came at the free throw line, and she had to take a lot of shots to get to that. And I thought, Kylie in particular and her time on her did a really good job of forcing Juju into some shots that maybe she doesn't like to take all the time. And then obviously last night, Prince, like I said, put up 22 in Iowa City in that first meeting. Was 2 of 6 last night, missed her only 3-point attempt and finished with 5 points. And when you can hold a score like that to just 5 points, that makes it really hard for the other team to find other players to score. Alexis Markowski was able to put up 15. They got, Rimdahl off the bench had 20. But when one of your top scorers only scores 5 points, you've got to find other people to step up, and they weren't able to find enough people around her to step up and win the game yesterday. And a lot of that was with Kylie and what she was able to do on the defensive end. But what I've liked about Kylie the last, 6-7 games, I believe it's 7 games now. She scored in double figures in 3 of the last 7 games. So she didn't last night, but I think for her, what she does on the defensive end, as long as she can be a threat on the offensive end, whether that's to hit a 3-pointer or two, or drive to the basket and maybe get fouled or get a layup here and there. If she can be a threat to score 6 to 8 points and, get in double figures every couple of games, I really think that changes the game for her, because earlier in the season when, she was really shooting it poorly from 3-point range, and Iowa still had Hannah at the 4, it was really kind of clogging up the offense a bit when Hannah was struggling at the 4 and Kylie couldn't hit a 3. But if she can be at least a threat on the offensive end and then pair that with what she does on the defensive end, that's where she earns her starting spot in the lineup. And early in the year, there were people asking if she should be out of the lineup. And I think over these last few games, with what she's been able to do, a couple of games on the offensive end, and really what she's done on the defensive end over the last 3-4 games, she's really solidified her spot in the lineup.
Kyle, when you look at this team as a whole, boy, the sky was falling like a month ago. Not even that, and they had a losing streak, and the coach wasn't good enough, and all that kind of stuff. And now it turned quickly. When you look back at it, and I think you knew this, and you probably talked about it, but they were close throughout a lot of that. I mean, they were losing close games, missing free throws late. So I don't want to say like they've done a complete 180, but they've turned a corner or maybe gotten over a hump. What have you seen? What's the difference between a month ago when they were so close and now where they're winning 5 straight games and trending in a really good direction here in February?
Yeah, I think first thing that people maybe haven't realized is that they've had 3 chances at game-winning shots this season that just haven't fallen. I mean, against Michigan State, Lucy had a shot. Addie O'Grady had a shot against Oregon, and then Aaliyah Guyton at the buzzer in regulation against Nebraska. If all 3 of those shots fell, they'd be at 20-4 right now, and you'd be talking about potentially hosting an NCAA tournament game again. But I think the thing that changed from the 5-game losing streak to now in this 5-game winning streak is that the veterans are just playing more consistent basketball. Earlier in the year, especially at the beginning of Big Ten play, Lucy Olson was struggling a little bit. I think some of that, like I said, was the adjustment period to Big Ten play from Big East play a year ago, where she was at Villanova. Sita Fulter came out and said that she was one that had been really hit hard by Caitlin's departure and trying to figure out her role on the offensive end when Caitlin isn't maybe creating some looks for her. Taylor McCabe was one that, has been a good 3-point shooter all year, but wasn't getting the consistent looks. Hannah Stolke was at the 4 where maybe she isn't as comfortable, wasn't really able to practice it with the knee injury over the knee surgery over the offseason. So they made a lineup change, move Hannah to the center position. I thought a really good move by Jan Jensen to kind of unlock Hannah's ability, because she was at the center position all last year. But like we talked about, Lucy Olson has played very well over this recent stretch, like the player she was last year at Villanova. Sita Fulter has been very good as well, a very good rebounder. I mean, she's the best rebounder on the team right now. She's really been shooting the 3-ball consistently lately. And then obviously when you have someone like Taylor McCabe that can step up and hit 5 threes, like I said, Hannah Stolke's moved to the center. She's been able to get more rebounds there. She's been able to score a little bit more efficiently. It didn't happen last night. But I think overall it's just the veterans have kind of hit a more consistent stretch of play. And what was, kind of tough for Jan Jensen in her first year as head coach during that losing streak is when you have that veteran group that you're expected to lean on in late games, in the second half of games, in close games, and they're playing a little bit inconsistently. It's hard for you to find the rotation that's going to work when you're not sure who's going to be the one to step up that night, or if anybody's going to step up on any given night. And for a first-year head coach that's going through their first bit of adversity, you want to be able to lean on veterans in those moments. And when she wasn't able to at times, it's hard to know who to turn to. So I think it was kind of a culmination of things that led to that 5-game losing streak. A first-year head coach going through their first bit of adversity, veterans not stepping up in certain situations. But I think it's all kind of, like you said, they've gotten over that hump now. They got that one win against Washington. They kind of started to snowball. But I think the big thing is the veterans are playing more consistently. You can rely on a Sita Fulter in the fourth quarter to get a big rebound, to hit a big shot. Lucy, you can seemingly rely on in any moment right now with the way that she's playing. And Hannah, for the most part, has been really good in the post. And those are the 3 players that you felt like you could rely on this season, and they're finally hitting that stretch of play where it seems like you can rely on them at any point in the game.
The veterans that you knew you could rely on are starting to play well, Kyle, but what have you seen from some other players? I've talked to a lot of people. Jim Matson's a guy who's been on this show who covered the Peoria area for so long and told me, like, hey, this Guyton girl's really, really good coming in there. Obviously, she's been slowed by the knee, but playing a lot better recently and kind of giving Iowa that spark. Who are some other players besides those veterans that you kind of knew that have impressed you and maybe can make an impact down the stretch as Iowa looks to not just get into the NCAA tournament anymore, but make some noise once they get into it?
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time in a long time that Iowa's been playing this many freshmen in the rotation. I mean, last night at one point they had 4 freshmen on the floor, with Lucy in the lineup as well. They've done that a couple times this season, but over this winning streak, as the veterans have started to step up, you've seen kind of those minutes go down for the freshmen a little bit. But last night was a really good example of, you're going to need the freshmen at some point. They got in some foul trouble last night, and again, like I said, 4 freshmen on the floor in a close game late in the first half. And they held their own last night. Not one of the freshmen that came in had a turnover. Taylor Stremlo hit a good mid-range jumper. Tegan Mulaney had a big basket and got fouled on it as well. Eva Hayden, who hadn't played since the first game of that winning streak out at Washington, came in and had 6 points on 3 of 4 shooting and played 13 minutes. It's a really talented group. I mean, you mentioned Aaliyah Guyton as well. She didn't have the greatest of nights last night, but someone that can create off the dribble. She can shoot really well. She's a good defender. So I'm really excited for this freshman group and what they can do, not only the rest of this season, but the rest of their careers. You look at what some of the stuff that I was doing for maybe incoming recruiting classes down the road. They're going to have a freshman class right now that they can build with down the road. But they're going to be needed down the stretch this season, whether it's, a game where the veterans get into foul trouble like last night, or, maybe someone's struggling and you've got to put in a Taylor Stremlo or a Leah Guyton for extended minutes to kind of help things. But I thought last night they really stepped up in a moment where they were needed, and played some good minutes late in the first half, and were able to keep that lead where it was before you got into the second half, and maybe some of that foul trouble went down a little bit, and maybe the concern was down a little bit. But yeah, I've been impressed with all of them at certain points. And of course they've kind of hit those spots where they've struggled at times, and that's to be expected from freshmen. But for the most part, they've come in and kind of done their job, and they're starting to kind of understand what their role is with this team. Where maybe as I was talking about earlier in the year, when maybe some players were struggling a little bit, and the minutes were a little unknown on who was going to get them on any given night. I think when the veterans start to play more consistently, and the freshmen kind of know, here's what my role is going to be generally on any given night, they can kind of fall into that role and feel a little bit more comfortable. And like I said, last night, those 4 freshmen combined for 48 minutes and didn't have a single turnover. And with some of the turnover issues that Iowa's had this season, that's really impressive to come in and do that.
Kyle, it's a quick turn for the Iowa ladies. They're home now, and they get Rutgers on Thursday, and then they have kind of a weekend off, but they don't, because they play Monday early, President's Day special. Monday at 11 a.m. At Ohio State. Let's start with Rutgers. You look at a winning streak that's building and getting bigger, an opportunity at home on Thursday night to continue that and keep the good times rolling.
Yeah, and for Rutgers, they're one of the lower teams down in the conference, 2-11 in Big Ten play. But you have to come into every game and expect the best from teams. I mean, we just saw it not too long ago with Northwestern. Not a great 3-point shooting team, one of the lower teams in the conference. They come out and hit a season high 9 threes and put up 80 on Iowa, and that was a close game the whole way. And Rutgers, kind of a similar team, not a great 3-point shooting team. They have a couple of really good scorers. Freshman Kaomi McMillar is averaging 18 a game. They've got a forward, Destiny Adams, that's almost going for a double-double every night. It's just one of those teams that on paper, they've been struggling. Only 2-11 in Big Ten play, but I think Jan Johnson will kind of bring up maybe that Northwestern game and say, hey, let's not look at the record. Let's look at some of the pieces this team has, because Northwestern was able to keep it close, and that was at Carver as well. So I was going to come out and put together a good effort against Rutgers, but I do like them to win that game going into Ohio State game on Monday. And like you mentioned, it's kind of a weird jump there. I mean, 11 a.m. Monday game. You don't really get, like you said, you feel like you have the weekend off, but you really don't, because they'll be getting to Columbus on Sunday, obviously, and that'll be a huge game. But yeah, you don't want to look past Rutgers, because they do have a couple of really good scorers. But I do expect them to go into that Ohio State game on a 6-game winning streak. And we'll see. Iowa's beat USC this year, so they can certainly do the same against Ohio State, but it's going to be a tough battle out there in Columbus.
Yeah, and you look at how this schedule sets up. It's an Ohio State game on a Monday, an early Monday game, and then they almost get a week off. They don't play till the following Sunday, where they welcome UCLA on a Sunday at Carver Hawkeye. I know Caitlin won't be there and a banner won't go up, but it's got that same vibe, that same energy. But Kyle, you look at these next, there's 3-game stretch with Ohio State, UCLA, and Michigan. At Michigan, that's going to be really a barometer of how good this team is playing as they get ready for the NCAA tournament, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's where they're really going to put this, if it is a 6-game winning streak, they're really going to put to the test how good that 6-game winning streak was. And obviously the USC win was a phenomenal one. But I don't think anybody expects them to go win 2 out of 3 in that stretch or all 3 or anything like that. But if you can go to Columbus, and even if you do lose, if you can be competitive in that game and keep it close, and same thing with UCLA at home, if you can keep that game close, and they're a really good rebounding team, so if you can at least stick with them in the rebounding and play a good game, the way I was played as of late, even if you keep those games close and you're competitive in them, they can be a confidence booster going into a game like a Michigan on the road, which I think is a winnable game, and then obviously they finish up with Wisconsin. So these last 5 games, I think 3 and 2 you'd be really happy with. Take care of business with Rutgers, take care of business with Wisconsin, and I think Michigan's the most likely win of those other 3. But I think if you can get any of those 3, you feel really good going into Big Ten play, and then likely NCAA tournament play after that.
Kyle, before we move to baseball, what's your ceiling for this team right now? How good can they be? Can they be a Sweet 16 team? They're an NCAA tournament team. I think we both realize that. I think we both know that unless something catastrophic happens down the stretch. They're an NCAA tournament team. What is the ceiling? I'm not saying what are they going to do, but what's a ceiling? How good can this team possibly be?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, and might be a cop-out answer, a lot of it comes down to what kind of bracket do they get when it comes to Selection Sunday? What are the matchups? Because I think there are, maybe not 1 seeds. There's not an easy 1 seed, but I think there's a chance that maybe there's a 2 seed that is a winnable game that kind of jumps in there. I do think there's an outside chance that they could get all the way up to a 6 seed, which would get them off the 1-2 game. Mm-hmm. They probably need to beat Michigan, beat Rutgers, beat Wisconsin, and win a game at the Big Ten tournament to have a chance. And even then, that might not be enough. So I think this team is a Sweet 16 level team. But if they do find themselves, facing a 1 seed in the second round or a 2 seed in the second round, that's going to be a road game with the way women get the women's side gets to host games at the NCAA tournament. That's going to be a really tough environment on whoever it is. So I think if they were able to really make a run here late and get up to a 6 seed, I feel a little bit more comfortable saying that with a 3 seed they might be able to make the Sweet 16. So I do think this team is a Sweet 16 level team. I thought that's where they would be at the beginning of the year. I just thought maybe they'd be more like a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament, which would give them a much better shot at the Sweet 16. But yeah, I think this team is good enough to pull off an upset in the NCAA tournament. But like I said, going on the road, whether it's a 1 seed or even a 2 seed, that's going to be a really tough environment to win in. So I would say Sweet 16 at this point would mean you pulled off a pretty big upset in the NCAA tournament. But I think that's the ceiling of this team of how good they are. But once we get to Selection Sunday, we'll see what's the first round matchup. What region are they in, and then we'll get a better idea. But right now, I think that second round matchup would be quite a tough climb. Not to say that they can't do it because they've already beat a USC this year, so they certainly beat one of the best teams in the country. But again, when you talk about that being on the road for the NCAA tournament, that's always an uphill climb.
Yeah, and Kyle, you mentioned that we talk about digging themselves a hole with some close losses and then digging themselves out. But that's where those close losses kind of come back in the end. You win a couple of those and you're not that 8 seed. You're not a 7 seed. Maybe you are that 6 seed or a 5 seed that gets you out of that danger early on in the NCAA tournament. Let's flip the script because as I look out my window, the sun is shining. It looks like it's a beautiful February day. I know that there's snow coming tomorrow and all that fun stuff. But whether snow's coming or not, baseball's coming. Opening weekend this weekend for the Iowa baseball team. You mentioned your 5th year covering these guys. Before we talk about this year's version of the Hawkeyes, what is it about that sport, this program, that obviously you have a vast interest in, something you've been covering for years, and something you reached out to Tommy to and said, hey, I'd love to cover this program more?
Yeah, I mean, I played baseball in high school. It's my favorite sport by far. Unfortunately, being a White Sox fan, I don't get to watch successful baseball as much as I'd like to. But yeah, baseball has been my favorite sport growing up. I still keep a scorebook for every Iowa game. That's just something that I like to do. But yeah, I mean, like this is my fifth year doing it, so I know Rick Heller, I know the coaching staff really well, which is always fun. They kind of give me that extra bit of access that maybe some other people don't get, which makes it much easier to do my job in depth at the level that I try to do. But yeah, Tom gave me the opportunity to cover baseball 5 years ago. It was a really, really weird situation because it was that coming off the canceled COVID season, so they only played Big Ten games only. We were doing Zoom calls with Rick Heller instead of going down to the dugout after games. We were sitting in the stands doing a Zoom call with him for the press conference after the games. But yeah, it's been great to get to know the whole coaching staff. I like to think that they enjoy the work that I do and enjoy talking to me. I just sat down with Rick for about an hour last week to talk about the team. But yeah, it's crazy to think that this is year 5 now. I mean, I've watched them go to I was out at Indiana State for that NCAA tournament a couple of years ago. But yeah, it's crazy to say that I've already been doing this for a half decade covering this team.
Yeah, and you look at the coaches at the University of Iowa, and people talk about Kirk Ferentz and Lisa Bluder, and now Coach Jensen, and Fran's been there for a long time. Rick isn't cut in that same mold that people don't talk about maybe enough, but just a genuinely good human being that's really good at what he does, and that's teach the game of baseball to college guys.
Oh yeah, I mean Rick Heller. I mean, I don't know that you could find another guy that can do what he's done at the University of Iowa. I mean, for lack of a better term, this was a terrible program when he came to Iowa. They were not a good team. They weren't making the Big Ten tournament. They were consistently at the bottom of the Big Ten. And it's a tough place to win at. I mean, Iowa just doesn't have the facilities. They don't have the weather. I mean, we're talking about, about to get 8 inches of snow a couple of days before the season opener. They got to go down to Florida to play. So being a Northern team, being an Iowa team, being the only D1 team in the state of Iowa, it's certainly a tough program to win in. And I think Rick Heller is maybe the only guy that can do what he's done at Iowa to make them a consistently competing team in the Big Ten. He's made 3 NCAA tournaments. And I get to work with him pretty closely, and I think Rick's one of the best guys to do it in college baseball. And I don't think people realize how hard it is to do what he's done at Iowa. But I would say at a national level, I think the people in Iowa, I think the people in the Big Ten understand what he's done at Iowa is impressive. But nationally, I don't think any of the people realize how tough it is to compete in the Big Ten and national level at Iowa, and he's been able to do that with this program.
All right, so tell me about this year's Hawkeyes. Maybe a little bit of a disappointing season last year when the expectations maybe were a little higher coming in. What's the thought process, and what do you expect from the Iowa baseball program this season?
Yeah, I think obviously last year was a little bit of a disappointment to be ranked in the top 25 and then not make the NCAA tournament is obviously a disappointment. I think Rick Heller put it a pretty good way last year throughout the season. He said you kind of get one of these seasons every, he's been coaching obviously for a long time, so he's been through it. Every 6 to 8 years, maybe 10 years, you get that type of season where there's a couple of guys that you thought were going to be big pieces that just didn't work out, and maybe you had injuries, and maybe it seems like the breaks in games don't go your way. And I think that's kind of what happened last year with Iowa. There were a couple of guys that you were for sure were going to have big roles and be big time players, and maybe they just had a disappointing season, and obviously they had their fair share of injuries. I mean, Sam Peterson was going to be a Big Ten Player of the Year candidate, and I think he played about 20 healthy games before he injured his shin. Tried to come back and play through it, but wasn't healthy. And Kyle Huckstorf breaks his hand late in the season, missed the last 15, 20 games. Brody Brecht wasn't fully healthy the entire season. Had a couple of starts where he was fighting through things. Kate Obermueller missed a couple of starts. Andy Nelson was injured for a little bit. So I think it was just kind of a culmination of things where it was in game. It felt like they couldn't catch a break. They had injuries. They had some guys that had some disappointing seasons, and it was just one of those seasons that, if they were projected to be 6th in the Big Ten, no one would have batted an eye. Would have been like, yeah, some tough breaks went against them, but it wasn't supposed to be that good of a year anyway. But it was supposed to be potentially one of their best years in program history, so that's why it made it a little bit more disappointing. But I think this year's team is in a position that Rick Heller knows really well and has flourished in, which is that under the radar team that nobody's looking at in the Big Ten. There's been a couple of projections out for NCAA tournament. I saw one that had 5 Big Ten teams in the NCAA tournament this year, and none of them were Iowa. So back in that position that Rick Heller has done a really good job with, which is that under the radar position where nobody's really picking them. But I do like the pieces that this team has. I think they've got the pieces to be a pretty good team. But it's interesting because, covering the team for this long now, generally there's a decent amount of returning starters. This year it's a little bit different, especially on the offensive side. Reese Moore was a guy that started a decent amount last year. Gable Mitchell, obviously, the Iowa City native, is going to return on the infield. And then you got Andy Nelson and Ben Wilmus in the outfield. But there's a lot of new faces as well. And on the pitching staff as well, there's going to be some guys moving into some new roles. There's the pieces, to me, the pieces to be a good team this year. But there's a lot of, well, can this guy take another jump? Or can this transfer come in and be a high-level contributor? And I think a lot of the answers to those questions are yes, they can come in and be that. Or yes, that guy can fill that role. Or yes, that guy can take a jump. But can they all do it? Can the majority of them do it? So I'm kind of going in the season with cautious optimism with this team. I feel like if it all comes together, they can be a really solid team. But there's some questions in some areas that I think have to be answered, at least early in the season. The first couple of weeks, we'll get to see, obviously, some of those transfers be out there and play some real games. Obviously, some of those pitchers that are in new roles getting out there and pitching in some real games. And I'm really interested to see the impact of new pitching coach Sean Kenny, a guy that's been coaching for close to 30 years now at a bunch of high-level programs and a bunch of high-level conferences. Rick Heller was talking about his impact and what he's done for the pitching staff this year already, just in the offseason. So I'm interested to see how different the pitching staff looks this year. But I think it's an under-the-radar team that if everything starts clicking, at least early in the season, they can start racking up some wins. I think this is a team that can still be a really solid team, and they get a lot of those tough series against the top Big Ten teams. They're going to be in Iowa City this year. So, like I said, a position that Rick Heller knows well and has done well in his time at Iowa.
Kyle Huesmann joining us right now. Before I let you go, those new faces, I think I said that right. New faces. Which ones stand out to you? Who are you most intrigued to watch get on the field this year for Iowa baseball and maybe take that next step and become that next Iowa baseball player that we've gone to love and see do big things?
Yeah, first off, I think Rick Heller and his coaching staff do a really good job of finding transfers that either fill the position that they need or just fit into the program really well. We talked about the difficulty of being good at Iowa and being able to coach an Iowa team to be competitive in the Big Ten and nationally. They're not going to be able to pull that high level transfer, kind of similar to the football thing with Iowa, where you're not going to be able to pull that proven transfer to Iowa just because you aren't. Well, for the baseball, you're not an SEC school, so you are playing in some cold temperatures early in the season. It's just Iowa in general is not a very marketable place for transfers. So they have to kind of pull some of these, lower level transfers. I don't think this year's transfer class has a Brennan DeRiggi that's going to plug and play and be an all Big Ten player. I don't think they have a Raider Tello that's going to be in and be 2 years and be an all Big Ten player. But I think they have a lot of really solid players. On the position player side, they've got Dan Rogers, who comes in from Loras, is probably one of the greatest hitters in Loras college history, finished with the most hits in program history, a guy that can really hit the ball well. But an adjustment period to go from Loras College to the Big Ten now at Iowa and face Iowa's pitching and things like that. So I think the talent that Iowa has on the pitching staff helps some of these transfers to adjust to high-level pitching before the season starts. But Dan Rogers is a guy that's going to catch. He's going to be a DH this year. He's going to be in the lineup every day. At shortstop, they bring over Cooper Schulte from Southeastern Community College down by Burlington. Going to be similar to like a Michael Seegers, really good defender. Decent hitter. I think his hitting ceiling is higher than a Michael Seegers. So if he can hit his ceiling as a hitter, I really like what they could have at shortstop this year. At first base, they've got Caleb Wolf, who's from Southeastern Community College as well. He's in a battle with Blake Gearin for that spot. But Caleb Wolf, Rick Heller said, is maybe one of the best all-around hitters on the team in terms of being able to get on base, be able to hit for a little bit of power, can run pretty decently. He can bunt. He can do all the little things as well. So maybe he's the guy that wins the first base job. And then in the outfield, you got Miles Risley, who comes over from Kirkwood just up the road. Really solid defensive outfielder, which is what they needed with Kyle Huxdorf being gone. But a solid offensive player as well. And then left field, battling with Ben Wilmus for the job. They're trying to kind of figure out how to get this guy into the lineup. Missouri transfer Jackson Beeman really had to overhaul his hitting approach over the offseason. Struggled with his timing a little bit, which cost him from swinging at pitches that he should have been swinging at. But when he has his timing down, and Rick Hellers talked about it a little bit, unmistakable power in his bat. I mean, he was on track to hit 13, 14 home runs had he gotten a full season of at-bats last year at Missouri, but just struck out too much. So if they can fix things with his hitting approach, he's a guy that might be able to sneak into the lineup. And then on the pitching staff, they brought in a guy from Georgia, Will Pearson, worked with Sean Kenny when Kenny was at Georgia. He's pitched, appeared in 65 games at Georgia in SEC play. So that experience is about as valuable as anything in the SEC, being at the highest level of baseball. Brought in a couple of guys from Houston, Bryson Walker and Dan Wright, which is where Sean Kenny was last year. Bryson Walker dealt with some arm issues in the offseason, so he's going to be a little slower start to this season. But a guy that once he's fully healthy, they think could start some games or be a longer relief guy out of the bullpen, potentially that guy that goes 3 or 4 innings after a starting pitcher and kind of closes out a game. And Dan Wright's a guy that started in the midweek games last year for Houston. They really like his versatility as being maybe a midweek starter, maybe be a starter if you're in a pinch, or be a reliever. So interested to see how those 3 guys do being back with Sean Kenny again, and how they fit into this Iowa pitching staff. But like I said, I think it's a group of transfers that is really solid. There's not one guy that you go, oh wow, like that's the huge addition that's really going to help lead this team, maybe like a Brennan Durigge did. But I think all those guys that I just mentioned are going to have very solid roles in the team, especially on the position player side. I think a lot of those guys will start. So I think that's the thing that Rick Keller does so well. Like I said, is he goes and finds guys that are going to fit the position that they need really well. They needed a shortstop that's a really good defender that can hit a decent level, and they went and they got a Cooper Schulte, a guy that they've known his dad for a really long time because he's the coach down at Southeastern. They just go and find transfers that really fit the program well and fit the positions that they need really well. And I think this transfer class is a really good example of what they've done in the portal over the years.
No one knows Iowa baseball like my man Kyle Huesmann. And you mentioned you had an hour. You spent an hour with Rick Heller recently. So go check out that interview, an article with Rick Heller that Kyle did recently. Iowa opens up the season against South Florida coming up on Friday. Believe it or not, next Tuesday, Iowa's scheduled to play at home against Loras. Mother Nature willing, we'll see what that happens with another round of snow coming in over the weekend. But it's your double time. You got to get you get really busy because you got Iowa women's basketball and Iowa baseball to do that. Kyle, tell people real quick how they follow you on social media if they want to know more about Iowa women's basketball and of course Iowa baseball as well.
Yeah, of course. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Huesmann Kyle. No numbers or anything in there. It's just at Huesmann Kyle on Twitter, and then. Obviously, Hawkeye Report, I'll have plenty of stuff up with women's basketball as the season goes on. I do cover media availability during the week. I do game previews. I do takeaways from each game. Obviously, I do a recap article after every game. And then baseball, I'm in the thick of doing my season previews. I had the infield out yesterday. The outfield one just went out this morning. I'll have pitching staff stuff out later in the week. I'll have media day today, later today, so I'll have some interviews up with players and some coaches. And then at the end of the week, I'll have the preview for their opening weekend with South Florida. So there'll be over the next 7 days or so, there's going to be a boatload of articles with women's basketball and baseball. This is probably my busiest week of the year outside of when I've had to go to the Final Four. But yeah, this week is always a busy one with the overlap, but it's also a fun one too. So yeah, Hawkeye Report, of course, and then for the On 3, and then at Huesmann Kyle on Twitter.
And the beauty part of it, as busy as this guy was, he took the time to hang out with us on Off the Air. We appreciate it. Now everybody knows why the Hawkeye Report is so successful. It has nothing to do with Tom Kakert. Kyle Huesmann, one of the driving forces behind the Hawkeye Report. Kyle, we appreciate you. We'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you.
All right. We got a lot more to get to on today's show. Coming up, we're going to go from one Bettendorf guy to another Bettendorf guy. We'll go from Kyle Huesmann to talking with Carter Bell, former Bettendorf standout, just wrapped up a record-setting career at South Dakota as he prepares for his opportunity in the NFL. We'll catch up with Carter Bell and much more coming up right here on Off the Air on a Tuesday.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Tuesday here in the Quad Cities. Of course, football season is officially over. The Super Bowl is done. College football season is over. You'd think it would be time to move on to another sport or the off season for football, but there's never really an off season. You just flip the page to the next chapter of the year. And of course, that's the NFL draft and what's to come in the off season. And of course, that means it's a very important time for familiar faces like Bettendorf's own Carter Bell. He joins me right now, former Bulldog, South Dakota record-setting wide receiver. And Carter, before we get talking about those days at South Dakota, y'all making me feel really old because it seems like just a couple of years ago you were wearing black and gold, and you tell me six years at South Dakota. I feel old. It seems like yesterday you were wearing black and gold and doing big things on Friday nights.
Yeah, no, it goes fast. It goes too fast. I know, like the first 4 years are like, oh, it's going slow or whatever, and then your senior year comes and it goes by like it was definitely the quickest season by far, and that's just it sucks, but I guess that's how it goes.
You had a fantastic career at South Dakota, so I want to start with that before we talk about what you're doing now and maybe what's next. You went to South Dakota. What did you know as you went up there? And now that we sit here at the end of your college career, did you see this happening? Did you see the fit working the way it did and the production that you had at South Dakota happening?
Yeah, I really didn't know what to expect going in as a quarterback. I had never played receiver, which was crazy. And I'm like, I don't know, what am I getting myself into? But I trusted in our head coach, Coach Nielsen. He told me he'll get me right, but I had no idea into that to think or what to believe would happen 6 years later.
You mentioned you went there as a quarterback to play wide receiver, and you never played the position. What was the adjustment process like? Obviously, you ended up doing quite well, but what was it like in those early years, going from a guy who had the football in his hands all the time to the guy running routes wanting to get the football?
I had some great leaders in front of me. There was like a big learning curve probably the first year. Not running a route for the first 18 years of your life and then coming into college ball and having to do that right away is crazy. But I had some great leaders and role models in front of me to learn from. But honestly, being a quarterback kind of helped because you see the field as a whole, and receiver's just a small part of that. So going into that kind of helped being a quarterback. Yeah, I mean, credit to the great leaders in front of me that kind of paved the way.
Obviously, you got yourself a nice little groove last season, 50 some receptions. You leave there as the all-time leader in receiving yards and receptions, one shy of receiving touchdowns. We won't dwell on that. Second place isn't bad, but to be able to do those kind of things and leave a lasting mark on a program that's had a ton of success, what does that mean to you?
It's awesome. I mean, there's some great names on those lists. Wish I could have got the touchdown one, but we'll save that, I guess. No, it's awesome. It's all credit to my teammates, especially with the transfer portal coming out like 3 years ago. We all decided as a 2019 class to stick it out because we knew we had something special at South Dakota and believed in each other and our coaches. And I think you saw that the last 2 years, make it to the quarterfinals and semifinals, that we had something special there. And I know there are things next year. And as a leader of the 2019 class, we wanted to, leave the place better than we found it. And I think we accomplished that.
You look at the individual records, and those are fantastic. But you just mentioned your last 2 years as a team: quarterfinals, semifinals. I'm assuming, especially being a coach's kid, that probably is more important than the records that you left individually.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I didn't even look at the records really until, the senior year. Really didn't care much about them either. I just wanted to win a championship just like the other guys. I think our running back, he broke a record too, but we we literally said to each other, like, we don't care about the record at all. We need to go win this championship. Sucks that we fell short. We left the place better than we found it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Carter Bell joining me right now on Off the Air. Being a wide receiver, we kind of talked about the difference between quarterback and wide receiver. But you could probably see yourself grow, just like as a quarterback, you watch yourself continue to grow and develop during your high school years. Was that kind of fun to watch yourself? And when did you feel comfortable as a wide receiver at the college football level?
Yeah, definitely. The biggest jump was probably year 1 to year 2. That first year coming in, you're always nervous and scared and don't really know what to do in that position. And just being able to kind of sit back and watch older guys do it and do it the right way and kind of learn from them helped a lot. Year 3, though, I think is when I really got to take off and actually felt comfortable out there and didn't have to worry about anything other than what my assignment was and, how to make a play. And then this year, I mean, I didn't think I could, see a big difference looking back. I was just playing free. And it felt good to actually just go out there and, have fun playing the game you love. But again, it's all credit to your older guys. And I try to be that this past year and just tell the dudes that, your time will come and to just learn right now and pay attention to the older guys and, don't get too mad when you don't get, the amount of reps you want, but just to learn and grow as a player through your years.
I'm assuming as a quarterback, you wanted to pattern your game off of this quarterback or that quarterback. As you became a wide receiver, was there a guy that you wanted to? Did you watch more film of any certain wide receiver and try to pattern your game after what they did?
Yeah, there's a couple guys. Obviously, everyone wants to be Julian Edelman, especially his run with Tom Brady. He has great film to watch, and the way he plays the game is awesome. But another guy is Cooper Kupp. He's not the fastest dude out there. He's not the biggest guy, but he just knows how to get open. So I watched a ton of film on him. Kind of tried to mimic my game after him, but in my own ways. I kind of want to have my own style. But yeah, those are two great dudes to watch.
You now look to make that next jump or that next transition. Kind of talk to me about how you go about doing this, because I'm old, as we mentioned. I've done this for 25 years, and I've seen different paths to the next level, to that NFL from this area. I've seen the knuckleheads like Pat Anger get drafted in the second round or third round or whatever it was, and that. I've seen a guy like Jake Travas be a walk-on at Iowa, and then grind his way, find a team. When you look at everybody's path and everybody's journey, I don't want you to tell me how you're going to do it because you don't know yet. But is it reassuring knowing that everybody's got their own journey and how to go about getting to that next level?
Yeah, for sure. And, coming from an FCS school, you get to do it with your own guys. They're in the same spot as you. So getting to work with them and just, we're really all working for that opportunity. And when that opportunity presents itself, we're going to run with it.
Okay, so you're not in the Quad Cities. You're up in Minnesota. Tell me how you prepare, how you get ready. I know you got a pro day coming at South Dakota. So what do these next couple months look like as you try to put your best forward to team scouts, those important people at the next level?
Yeah, I mean, you really just kind of keep your head down 6 days a week and work out every day, twice a day, and just focus on your body and everything about it, trying to get ready. It's a tough commitment, but you got to do it to get the opportunity. And you got to love what you do, and I love the game of football, so I'm gonna do it.
There's a pro day coming. When is it? How do you approach it? Do you put like, I need to prove I can run this number or that number, or how do you approach what you're trying to accomplish when it comes to goals, numbers, those kind of things?
Yeah, I mean, ours is at the end of March, so we get about 10 weeks to prepare for it. But really, the biggest thing I've heard around is just go do what you do. It's gotten you this far. So don't try to, overdo the stuff or, worry about certain things. You just got to be yourself, or you wouldn't be in this position in the first place. But honestly, there's 4 or 5 South Dakota kids up here training at the same place. So getting to do that with them was awesome, and, just push each other because we're all in the same position. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to try to do anything special. I'm just going to go out there, be myself. Obviously, this is what we're doing. We're preparing for that day for the next 10 weeks or this past 10 weeks. Yeah, so I just, the biggest thing is just going out there and doing what I did all last season.
You get an opportunity to do that. It sounds, if you got 5 other South Dakota guys, are you just continuing college up there? Is that just like another extension of the good times?
I mean, we're living with our center, actually. So it's me and the running back, and then our center, we're living at his house up in North Minneapolis. So yeah, basically.
Is that what is fun about not just, college football, but this game is it leads you to so many different people, different experiences, different journeys. Like I mentioned, everybody writes their own journey, but it is. Did you know when you were a senior in high school at Bettendorf that you'd be a wide receiver working out in Minnesota, staying with your center's family or whatever you're doing right now? It's crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, and at the end of the day, it's a game, and you really are there for the locker room memories and everything else of the road trips. And at the end of the day, it's a game, and you gotta have fun outside of the game. And I guess that's what we do.
A couple more for you before we let you go. Obviously, you get that next journey, or you get to finish this one as well. Are you prepared, obviously, just to go with the flow? And you almost have to be. Talk about the mental side of it, because you don't know what draft day holds. You don't know what offers come after draft day, all those kind of things. How do you prepare mentally for the unknown of the NFL draft and the NFL in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. You really have no clue what's going to happen. Once you hit your pro day, the next month is your mind's going to wander wherever. But, we've talked about it all the time. And it's just not to worry about anything. You're only going to hurt yourself, when you worry, and you're going to start putting doubts in your mind of what's going to happen. So, I mean, I just try not to worry, have a plan, and it's in front of me.
Football, to say it's in your blood would be like an understatement. Obviously, your dad is at Augustana doing great things, was at Monmouth before that. What was it like growing up? I mean, you're around the game so much with what your dad does for a living. And obviously I'm not saying he pushed you into doing anything, but the love of the game was there for you at an early age, was it not?
Yeah, I mean, I've been around it so long, you would have thought I would have needed to get away from football coming out of high school. But no, I mean, I got to, create relationships with a bunch of his former players that still stay in touch with me today. And I think that's the cool thing about being around, that side of football. And getting to watch it from the sidelines as a little kid, and growing up with a dad that knows what he's talking about. He did a great job of not forcing me into anything, really. He'd get on me. He'd get on me a couple times. Those are great moments. But no, he did a great job of just kind of letting me go free and, choose whatever I choose. It wasn't too harsh, but there were some moments.
I got to take a second. Coach Bell, did you hear that? He just said, growing up with a dad who knows what he's talking about. So finally, after all these years, you can give him some credit. The dad, you were right the entire time. Watching
I
him.
never would have said that 5 years ago.
That's probably true. I'm waiting for those days for my kids. It might not be with sports, but eventually dad's not the dumbest guy in the room. Watching him from afar. So flip it around. Obviously, he's been watching you and supporting you and following you. flip side, he makes the move from Monmouth up to Augustana, and they had a fantastic season. They've been doing good things. He's building it the right way. What do you see when you look the other way around and watch what Dad's doing?
You know, the only thing that sucks about that is he doesn't get to make a lot of games. But, you know, I'll watch his games on Saturday and see how they're doing if I have time. But it's fun to just kind of talk to him after the game. I know he watches it right away when he can. But we usually have like that one phone call after every game and kind of discuss the stuff that happened or whatever. So it's cool. Obviously it sucks that he can't make, you know, a ton of games. But, you know, maybe I'll be in his spot one day.
I was just going to say, you took my next question. Now, we're going to have like a 10-year NFL career. So I'm talking a decade or so from now. Is coaching in your blood? I mean, just talking the game, the way you talk now, the way you love the game. Can you see following in your old man's footsteps and being on the sideline someday?
I definitely could see that. You know, you never know what's going to happen. He's got a lot of great connections that could, you know, help me in that move. At the end of the day, yes, it could be, it could be some. I think it'd be cool to be, you know, stand next to him one day. But you never know.
No, that would be a fantastic story. A couple more before I let you go. You mentioned his ties, his connections. There are several ones that know what they're talking about when it comes to the NFL. One that pops into my head, someone I know well that I'm trying to get on the show if he's watching this eventually, but is Alex Tanney, who is a coach in the NFL. Do you use that, and I don't want to say him in particular, but maybe him in particular, to like find out what happens, what teams are looking for, etc., when it comes to educating yourself for what the next level might be like?
Yeah, we've definitely been in contact about stuff like that. I know my dad reaches out to him all the time to kind of help me out if I have some questions or something like that. So he's been a great help. And yeah, it's awesome to have a connection like that, you know, and kind of get a jump on ahead of others. And you know, in that aspect.
Do you remember him at Monmouth? I'm trying to figure out, how old were you when he was the trick shot quarterback from Monmouth College? I'm afraid to ask this because you're going to say like you were 2 years old and it's going to really depress me.
No.
Okay, good.
No, I was definitely old enough to remember. I think I was there. I think I was there for one of his trick shots, actually. I think the one where he threw it out of the basketball court or something like that.
Yeah. No,
that was awesome. But no, yeah.
He was amazing. He's a good individual, good dude. Before we let you go, one more thing about your hometown. So obviously you're watching Dad, you're watching what you're doing and focused. Do you touch base with Bettendorf at all? Do you watch what the Dogs are doing, all that kind of stuff? Obviously some special Friday nights there at Bettendorf High School for you.
Yeah, you know, I try to stay in contact with them and kind of watch them from afar. I know it helped when my sisters were there in high school. They'd always update me on scores and what's happening throughout the game. And I stay in contact with Coach Frecking all the time, you know, asking him questions and everything like that. So definitely keep watching. I mean, they're doing a great job. Coach Wiley's awesome. Love talking to him when I come back home. So yeah, I try to keep up with them.
A bunch of good dudes. I would warn you to make sure you don't associate too much with Coach Frecking. He can be a little weird. No, I'm kidding. He's an awesome individual as well. All right, before we let you go, obviously you got an important couple months and you're dialed in and you're locked in. Did you get a chance to look back at the college career and celebrate it and enjoy it at all, or is it just next page? Move on to the next thing, and maybe when you're an old man someday like myself, you look back at the records and all those kind of things?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of moved on pretty quick, but I know for sure I'll look back. It didn't help that we lost in the semifinals because then I just kind of wanted to forget it and move on right away. But no, I'll definitely take some time in the next couple of years to, you know, reflect on that and definitely make some games back in Vermillion.
Absolutely. Well, he's Carter Bell, record-setting wide receiver at South Dakota. I never thought covering you as a quarterback I would introduce you or call you that, but it's been an awesome thing. Best of luck. Keep working really hard. Let's stay in touch, and we'll talk real soon. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. Thank you.
All right, Carter Bell, a South Dakota State standout, former Bettendorf Bulldogs, joining us here on Off the Air on a Tuesday. We wish him the best of luck as he gets ready for the next level. We got a lot more to get to right here on a Tuesday edition of OTA. We'll be back right after this.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Tuesday here in the Quad Cities. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're quickly running out of time. I want to thank our guests from today. John Marx making his way out to the house to talk about everything when it comes to high school sports. We talked about the Super Bowl a little bit. We also talked about that weather coming up tomorrow. And we also had a spirited conversation about the return of Alleman High School to varsity football and maybe some of the negativity, surprisingly, surrounding it over the last 24 hours. So that was fun. Go check that out if you missed it. Weigh in if you missed it as well. Love debating. We were in agreement there, but love debating and chatting sports with Johnny Marks. Also, want to thank Kyle Huesmann from the Hawkeye Report for joining us, a Bettendorf grad doing big things with the Hawkeye Report. He covers women's basketball and Iowa baseball for Tom Caker in the Hawkeye Report. So he was outstanding. Go check him out as well. The Iowa women getting a big victory last night. In Nebraska as well. And then also we want to thank Carter Bell, former Bettendorf standout, former South Dakota State record-setting wide receiver. Covering him as a quarterback at Bettendorf, I never thought I would be calling him a record-setting wide receiver, but he did a fantastic job with South Dakota, and now he's getting ready for the NFL. So we want to thank Carter for joining us. If you missed yesterday's show, go back and check that one out. Pat Angerer was entertaining as always. Also help us figure out our bet. Pat and I will be playing horse someday next week. The loser has to do something really stupid. We are trying to figure it out. We're narrowing it down. We're getting pretty close, but go check out that as well. Pat, always interesting and entertaining. Also, Julian Vernevelde with a fantastic breakdown of the Super Bowl, Cooper DeJean, and a lot more. We also talked with Jeff Schmalbach yesterday, Alleman football coach, and Braden Freeman as well. So a full show from Monday as well that if you need to catch up with, all of it's still very relevant. Go check out yesterday's show and today's show as well. If you have not subscribed already, please do that. Also, tell a friend or two about what we're doing, a daily streaming Quad City sports show each and every day right here in the Quad Cities. Excited for tomorrow. It's Wild Man Wednesday. We should be tracking down Dan Burge sometime this evening. We'll talk with Dan about the best rivalries when it comes to sports here in the Quad Cities, and much, much more to get to with Dan Burge. Also, chasing down Taylor Panel as well, the former Rock Island standout, doing huge things on the softball field at Tennessee. So hoping to track her down either for tomorrow's show or for Thursday's show as well. Alex Tanny was trying to track down, plus a big night of college basketball. Iowa State on the road against Central Florida, and also the Fighting Illini welcoming UCLA to the State Farm Center tonight, 7 p.m. tip. So we'll break down both of those games tomorrow as well. Probably catch up with Jim Madsen or Jake Brend along the way, maybe both, and kind of get their thoughts on the Illini and the Iowa State Cyclones as we quickly move through the month of March and head towards March Madness, or the month of February and move towards March Madness. Also, it is supposed to get snowy out tomorrow, so make sure you guys are staying safe. I started the show by joking a little bit about it as well. We are going to get some snow, so stay safe. Check out all my weather buddies that do a fantastic job keeping people safe, including James Zahere and company. So always keep an eye to the skies and be safe when it comes to snow here in the Quad Cities. And of course, we will have a brand new episode of Off the Air tomorrow, same time, 10 a.m. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show, and we'll see you back for more fun coming up tomorrow.